There was a time when New Zealand cricket felt invisible. Not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked identity. They drifted from one series to another, quietly competing, quietly losing, and quietly fading into the background. There were moments of brilliance, yes, but they were buried beneath a pattern of playing safe, playing slow, and playing small.
Australia have won it. Harris has held his nerve and finally...
The team had the skill, the passion, the hunger, but none of it had direction. Cricket for them had become about survival, not dominance, about respect, not fear, and the Black Caps had become a team that no one expected anything from, not even themselves. Then came the chaos. Ross Taylor, a man who had led the side with dignity, was suddenly pushed aside. No warning, no clarity, no grace. The transition was ugly, public, and painful.
Taylor was sacked as one-day and 2020 captain last week and refused an offer to stay on as Test skipper. The furore has led to a public apology to Taylor by New Zealand cricket over the way his axing was handled.
Fans were furious. The dressing room was fractured, and right at the center of it all stood Brendon McCullum. His Test captaincy began in Cape Town, a fresh start, or so it was supposed to be. But with no Taylor, no rhythm, no trust, the team collapsed for just 45 runs. The world's #1 Test side had humiliated them, and McCullum's reign had started with the lowest of lows. It could have all ended there, but it didn't, because McCullum wasn't built to break. He didn't come in to restore what was lost. He came to rebuild it from scratch. He didn't walk in with strategies. He walked in with a mindset, fearless, fast, unfiltered. He didn't tell his teammates to be careful. He told them to be dangerous. For the first time in years, New Zealand walked into matches not hoping to compete, but daring to dominate. And this is the story of how one man, in the face of controversy and collapse, lit a fire that would turn a forgotten team into a fearless force. Not by taking control, but by setting them free. Not by playing it safe, but by burning the old script and writing a new one in fire. Part 1. The fall that sparked a storm. It began in 2008, the end of the John Bracewell era. New Zealand cricket was drifting, unpredictable, sometimes exciting, often disappointing. When Bracewell left, the instability began. 3 coaches came and went between 2008 and 2012. In this chaos stood a young Brendon McCullum, talented, fearless, but misunderstood. He had the spark, the charisma, the stroke play that could light up a crowd. He was made vice captain, then sacked. When coach Andy Moles resigned, reportedly because he'd lost the dressing room, people connected the dots. The whispers started. Was McCullum pulling strings? Was he leading a revolt? Stories emerged of his late nights, his bad influence on the younger players. It became a narrative, and it stuck. Enter Ross Taylor, the opposite in every way. Quiet, calm, composed, placed among the finest batters New Zealand has produced. A fan favourite, and when Daniel Vettori stepped down after the 2011 World Cup, the captaincy came down to 2 names, Taylor and McCullum. But it wasn't a fair fight. Coach John Wright and Director of Cricket John Buchanan had already chosen their man. They saw Taylor as the safer option, more stable, less drama. McCullum was never really in the running. So in June 2011, Ross Taylor became captain of New Zealand. He had an inconsistent start as captain. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady, a captain still figuring things out. he deserved time, and to help him, in 2012, New Zealand appointed a new coach, Mike Hesson. Then came the 2012 ICC Men's T20 World Cup in Sri Lanka. New Zealand started strong, beating Bangladesh. Then the spiral began. Lost to Pakistan, lost to Sri Lanka in a super over, lost to England, and fell to West Indies again in a super over. It was a painful campaign, but in the middle of it, one man shone, Brendon McCullum. Highest run scorer for New Zealand in the tournament, strike rate of 159.39, third best in the tournament, third most fours, fifth most sixes. He wasn't just surviving, he was erupting. In 2012 alone, he piled up over 1400 international runs, a sign that a storm had awakened within him. But while the world applauded the numbers, something was boiling beneath the surface. And as the team boarded the flight for the next tour, Sri Lanka, November 2012, a storm was waiting to explode. Part 2. The captaincy controversy that shook New Zealand cricket. By now, we have a fair idea of how things unfolded. Brendon McCullum was once sacked as vice captain, lost the race for the captaincy to Ross Taylor, and then came the controversy that changed everything. Let's rewind a bit. When Mike Hesson took over as head coach, he was far from satisfied with how New Zealand was performing. Inconsistent results were hurting the team, especially in white ball formats. They were knocked out in the group stage of the T20 World Cup and had slipped to 9th in the ODI rankings, below Bangladesh. Test cricket, however, was a different story. Under Ross Taylor, New Zealand had secured a historic win in Australia, their first in over 2 decades. To Hesson, the solution was clear: a split captaincy. Taylor would lead the test side and McCullum would take charge of the limited overs teams. In theory, it sounded ideal, but reality would be far messier. McCullum was a fan favourite. His explosive batting had won hearts, but there were whispers in the background. In 2009, coach Andy Moles had resigned amid reports that McCullum played a role in undermining him. His sacking as vice-captain was never fully forgotten. Then came the 2011 captaincy race, a saga McCullum described as a setup. He was told the interview panel would include John Wright, Mark Greatbatch, John Buchanan, and Justin Vaughan. But when he walked in, Vaughan was missing. Wright, whom he didn't trust, was there. Greatbatch had personal ties with Taylor. McCullum left feeling blindsided. In his autobiography he wrote, "Within days of the public announcement of Ross's captaincy, Greatbatch was a guest at Ross's wedding." That was just the beginning. In November 2012, before a test series against Sri Lanka, Hesson informed Taylor that he would revisit the leadership roles after the tour. What Taylor didn't realize was that Hesson was talking about white ball formats only, something he never clarified. But Ross had doubts in his mind. Taylor went on to score 142 and 74 in Colombo, leading New Zealand to their first test win in Sri Lanka since 1998. But days later, he was told the captaincy was being taken away. It was finalized. Brendon McCullum will look over the shorter formats and Ross Taylor will lead the test side. But Taylor was against split captaincy. Hurt and frustrated, he stepped down from all formats. In his statement, he said, "It was sad and disappointing from a personal perspective, but it did not come as a great surprise. Mike Hesson, Mike Sandel and Bob Carter met with me before the first test and raised concerns about my captaincy. The next day, Hesson told me he didn't want me to captain the team after the tour." New Zealand cricket chairman Chris Moller apologized to Ross Taylor for the way the team's captaincy change was handled. Mike Hesson, on the other hand, claimed his comments had been misunderstood. "I alluded to the fact that I would be making a recommendation to make change to the leadership. I'm unsure how Ross felt regarding that discussion. I certainly regret if he felt that was in relation to the test side. The review was following the one-day series." But by then, it was too late. McCullum was appointed captain across all 3 formats. What Hesson wanted, McCullum as captain, he got. But what he needed, Taylor to continue leading the test side, was lost. Soon, others began to weigh in. New Zealand assistant coach Trent Woodhill criticized the handling of the situation, calling it unfathomable. He believed a split captaincy could have worked, but said the execution was poor. He also pointed to the West Indies tour as the moment things began to unravel, claiming Taylor wasn't treated well and the team dynamics were already showing strain. Taylor later stated he never received support from Hesson during his tenure and was surprised by the timing of the decision, especially since it came just after he had led New Zealand to a win over Sri Lanka in Colombo.
With a safe pair of hands to finish it in style and thoroughly deserved Trent Boult.
The fallout was intense. Former New Zealand captain Martin Crowe reportedly burned his New Zealand blazer in protest against Taylor's demotion and even called the New Zealand Cricket Board worthless. In his autobiography declared, McCullum insisted he played no role in Taylor's removal. He acknowledged that the team under Taylor had been disjointed and that many players found Taylor unapproachable. McCullum wrote that Hesson had made a genuine effort to help Taylor grow as a leader by offering him structured platforms to express himself. Yet, Taylor remained distant. According to McCullum, it felt like Taylor had simply been told to just score runs and let his performance speak for his leadership. McCullum too was in a difficult position. He said he wasn't aware of the details of Hesson's conversation with Taylor before the tour. When offered the captaincy, he claimed he had only two choices: accept the role across all formats or retire. McCullum admitted that after Hesson's appointment, Taylor began to withdraw further, likely because McCullum and Hesson already had a friendly relationship. As the team struggled from series to series, McCullum became increasingly frustrated with the state of New Zealand cricket. During the Sri Lanka tour, he once ran from the golf stadium to the team hotel, trying to burn off the weight of it all. He also expressed his frustration to his mental conditioning coach, Kerry Schwalger, through long, private emails, knowing the emails would remain confidential. Then came John Parker. The former New Zealand cricketer publicly accused McCullum of being involved in Taylor's removal and presented a document titled The Taylor Affair, which reached the courts. Legal action was considered, though Parker later apologized. The damage had already been done. By early 2013, McCullum was under immense pressure. The media narrative painted him as the man who wanted captaincy at any cost. Legends like Martin Crowe expressed deep disappointment. The public was divided. The board needed results. The coach needed proof that his gamble had worked. And McCullum, he needed to prove that he was more than just a talented batter. He needed to lead. It was chaos. It was tense. It was uncertain. But this was the storm that would either break him completely or make him legendary. Part 3. The new low that helped New Zealand rise. A new chapter had begun in New Zealand cricket. After being removed as captain, Ross Taylor stepped away from the game for a few months. At the same time, McCullum was set to lead the Black Caps against a quality South African side, and that too without a key player like Ross Taylor. There were high expectations, high hopes, but the same old problems. There's no better place to start than Test cricket, the one format where McCullum was never really seen as the man to lead. The Black Caps walked out at Cape Town to face the #1 ranked Test side in the world. McCullum later said, "I wanted to make a strong statement, particularly to my team, but also to the opposition." But 19 overs and 2 balls later, New Zealand were all out for 45. Yes, 45. The highest scorer, Kane Williamson, with just 13.
Third lowest total in Test cricket. Kane Williamson, the only man to get into double figures. Extras made 7. They were bowled out just before lunch on day 1. Brilliant from the South African scene.
South Africa's 347 for 8 declared was more than enough. New Zealand collapsed again in the second innings and South Africa won by an innings and 27 runs, all wrapped up by day 3. A disastrous start for McCullum. But if that was bad, the second test was even worse. South Africa batted first and piled up 525 for 8 declared. New Zealand replied with 121 all out. The follow-on was enforced and they could only manage 211 in the second innings. Another innings defeat, this time by 193 runs. Every single day New Zealand cricket was hitting a new low. But as things crumbled on the surface, McCullum and Mike Hesson were preparing for a quiet revolution behind the scenes. They both knew that before anything else, they needed to fix their approach to Test cricket. McCullum held a meeting with team manager Mike Sandel and assistant coach Bob Carter. No whiteboards, no PowerPoint, just a raw, honest conversation. "We just spoke from our hearts," McCullum said. The issues ran deep. The team had no identity, no real connection with their fans, and the dressing room wasn't a healthy place for younger players. McCullum himself was seen as someone who talked more than he walked. There was a sense of hierarchy, senior players at the top and the rest left behind. The setup lacked character. As Hesson admitted, there were probably some selfish behaviors in the team. These guys are professional cricketers. If you don't get picked, you don't get paid. They all agreed that beyond the tactical issues, the team had no soul. So the objective became clear. They wanted respect from New Zealand fans, from their opponents, from the world. And the one way to earn it was to play an aggressive brand of cricket, to stop worrying about what might go wrong and start thinking about what could go right. And what followed over the next few years would change the way the world viewed New Zealand cricket. It wasn't just the batting, it wasn't just the bowling, it was everything. The intensity, the effort, the spirit. Who can forget McCullum diving full stretch to save even a single run? He said it best in 2015 after his retirement. There was no soul about how we went about our cricket. I think now people know they're going to see every man chase the ball to the boundary to try and save one run. And guys play with some freedom and an aggressive brand of cricket because we feel that resonates with New Zealanders. 2 years ago, we weren't doing those things. Coming back to 2013, the path was clear. It was no longer just about results. It was about building a team that had character. A team that made the opposition nervous. A team that played positive and fearless cricket no matter what. The New Zealand public wants to see us win, McCullum said. But it is more important to make it hard for the opposition to beat us. And with that, the stage was set for the rise. Part 4. From Forgotten to Feared. While New Zealand didn't shine much in the 2013 Champions Trophy or the 2014 T20 World Cup, something was brewing in their bilateral series. Opponents were beginning to realize that New Zealand couldn't be taken lightly anymore. Brendon McCullum's captaincy was the turning point. His bowling changes, spot on. His field placements, innovative and efficient. Additionally, McCullum gave his batters the license to go after any bowling attack, no matter how elite. He played a pivotal role in turning Trent Boult and Tim Southee into match winners, and in shaping Kane Williamson into the modern-day great we know today. Under McCullum, New Zealand didn't just win, they dominated, but they did it with class, humility and spirit, and at the center of it all stood one man, Brendon McCullum. There are countless examples of him stepping up, but let's talk about that match against India. New Zealand scored just 192 in the first innings. India replied with a massive 438. It looked done and dusted. But then McCullum walked in and smashed a 302, the first ever triple century in New Zealand's history.
Everybody around standing. What a wonderful ovation. What a tremendous innings. Proud and happy dad over there.
Even Martin Crowe, the legendary batter whose 299 was once the highest test score for New Zealand, said, "With Brendon scoring our nation's first ever triple hundred, I have finally removed the one remaining stone in my shoe." And it didn't stop there. McCullum played all three formats with the same mindset. Attack, attack and attack. His aggressive approach redefined Test cricket too. Before baseball became a term in England, McCullum was already living it. Against Pakistan, 202 of 188 balls, strike rate 107.44. Against Sri Lanka, 195 of 134 balls, strike rate 145.52. And in his final Test match against Australia, he didn't go out gently. He smashed the fastest century in Test history of just 54 balls.
96. Down the wicket. He goes over the top. Could it be it? It is. It's the record for Brendon McCullum. A magnificent 100 here in Christchurch. It's a fairy tale. The crowd stands.
Under McCullum, New Zealand recorded their highest Test win percentage over a 2-year period. And in the shorter formats, they had become a team you had to be at your best to beat. In ODIs, McCullum took the Kiwis to their first ever World Cup final in 2015. And if there was one match that stood out in that campaign, it has to be the semi-final against South Africa. They were chasing a target of 298 in just 43 overs. But McCullum didn't come to try, he came to win. 59 of 26 balls, 8 fours, 4 sixes, strike rate of 226.92. When he got out, New Zealand were already at 71 in just 6.1 overs. That set the tone for the rest. Grant Elliott finished it in style. But McCullum's start was the spark. Yes, players like Anderson, Taylor and Elliott deserve credit, but so does the skipper who gave them belief. And returning to the McCullum-Taylor duo, yes, the controversy made headlines, but through it all, credit to both of them. When it came to representing their country, they put the team first. It's unfortunate that McCullum and Taylor no longer share the bond they once had. But even in the toughest moments, they never let personal differences get in the way of the bigger picture. As Martin Crowe once said, what Ross Taylor and Brendon McCullum have achieved these last few months is monumentally epic. They have inspired their team, a team that has been in the doldrums for too long. Indeed, they have reinvigorated a cricket nation and most importantly encouraged many young aspiring athletes to dream big. From the dark days of New Zealand cricket, through the controversies, to building a rock-solid foundation that still holds strong today, it all traces back to one man who changed the course, Brendon McCullum. He changed the future of New Zealand cricket. There was a time when you could take them lightly, not anymore. Yes, McCullum has long retired, but his legacy, it lives on. In every black cap, in every fearless stroke, in every comeback. He didn't just lead a team, he rewired a mindset. He gave New Zealand a new identity, bold, unapologetic, unafraid. So now, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite McCullum knock? Let me know in the comments and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.